Okay, fellow queers, P.O.C, and other folk. I'm trying to rhyme something with queers. My bad. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out in the
Queers
future.
right with peers.
Queers, ears. No, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway,
Fear for fears.
steers. We're not cows. Oh, unless you want us to.
And we're not in Texas.
Hey, Texas.
I was watching an anime and the guy was like, "What's up, all you? What was it? Or was it guys, gals, and non-gender binary pals?"
Hey, bitches and bros and non-binary hoes!
Guys, gals, and other sex
Non-binary pals.
pals.
Yeah.
I'll just say other
I
sex.
was like, "Oh, that's beautiful." I'm sure the anime is like a horribly like misogynistic piece of shit show, but I was laughing.
Gays, queers, and allied peers. There we go. I got it.
There you go.
There we go.
Hello, all you fellow gays, queers, and allied peers. Welcome back to another Alphabet Mafia video, and I'll be running the show for this time around. So
Yeah, we killed Zolly.
yeah, I
I'm
killed him.
afraid to say.
Dead.
Yeah,
So dead I can't even hear his voice.
we couldn't take him anymore.
He was too white for my taste. See? So now that he's dead and gone, and probably his ghost may or may not be hovering and looming over my shoulder, I'm going to be covering a few things. One of which I'll be getting first. I'll be getting into statistics regarding homosexuality, black acceptance, compared against to white acceptance. I'll talk about the Black Panthers and what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. Cleaver. Our boy, Mr. Cleaver. Eldritch Cleaver. I'll be getting into Eldritch Cleaver and the Black Panthers, and
Did
finally,
you call
I'll
him
be
Eldritch Beaver?
Eldritch Beaver. Yep.
Oh my god, yeah.
It makes sense because he's literally a fucking pussy. Anyway.
Wow. And this segment's getting demonetized.
Oh man. It's okay. We don't do it for
Well,
the
I mean,
money, right? Right? Oh,
This is
okay.
true, though.
I mean, we did have a voice come back from the dead and magically speak to us.
Yeah.
No, I just chewed through the duct tape with my massive beaver teeth.
Massive pussy teeth. I will not apologize for that.
No worries.
So after I cover the Black Panthers and Eldritch Cleaver, then I'll be discussing kind of the good ending and how the Black Panthers get out of the mess that Cleaver and pretty much white culture has shoved it into. All right.
And then also a real quick announcement. So we actually here at the Alphabet Mafia have been seeing some actual like surge in users. So I would honestly have to ask a lot of you to share this video, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already for more content. We'll be pushing out. And then also, I know I put on the scheduling that we were going to do a different video for next week, which is going to be the Rob Halford video to start like a segment of villains and the heroes of the gay movements and P.O.C movements. But we did have some stuff crop up with Marjorie Taylor Greene and some moving social issues with monkeypox. So we're actually going to shift gears and do um, a start into the Act Up and the Fight for Life segments, which is going to be a multi-part show because I'm not going to shove like 18 hours of content in the video. So for those of you who are excited about the Rob Halford video, you're going to have to wait just a little bit longer. But for those of you who were kind of interested for the Act Up and the Fight for Life, that's going to be coming to you sooner rather than later.
Remember to fight for life. Unborn
Right.
life. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We fight for unborn life, right? Not
Yeah,
everyone
once they
else.
get once they get out of the womb, they can go fuck themselves and die in a gutter.
Yes, fuck those bastards.
If they're preborn, they're fine. If they're preschool, they're fucked.
Exactly. Just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and don't get shot in a school shooting. Ever think about that, Timmy?
You little shit.
Fucking shit. Next time, don't get shot.
All right.
Yeah, kids are too entitled these days. You know, they expect the police to come in and help them if they're actually going to get shot. Like, come on.
Being a fucking pussy.
Back in my day, you had to get dragged behind the back of a fucking pickup truck before you could even call yourself a gang.
Yeah, boy. You get bent over at the same pickup truck, you know?
Alright. Oh my god. So, homophobia in the P.O.C community. Twisting, start us up.
Yay! It's gonna be so much fun!
Not really. So, to start off, I'm going to be talking just a wee bit about Black conservative. What is a Black conservative? Well, when people think of like Black conservatives, they think of people that are like Black traitors, like an Uncle Tom or something like that. Think somebody like Uncle Ruckus.
May white God bless you, Robert. I came as fast as I could.
People like
May
Candace
God bless
Owens.
you, Robert.
That guy, yes. Well, in real life, we will call them Candace Owens or Brandon Tatum.
Or Ben Carson.
Or oh, God, Ben Carson. Don't get me started on that guy.
I hear he's your favorite, Twisty. I heard you voted for him.
I love Ben Carson so much. I surely voted for that man. Fun fact about though, before I continue, my mom actually was like a pretty huge Ben Carson fan. My mom is a conservative, like kind of a conservative, like center right leaning person. Like she was like all about Ben Carson up until he started endorsing Donald Trump. She's like, you know what, I'm done with this dude. I thought that was funny. Self-defeating Black conservative.
Well, I mean, if it's any consolation, he was Christian, which means that, since he voted conservative and was a rich man, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for him to get into heaven. So he's probably in hell right now, having like his ass poked out by a bunch of like big titty demons with like vaginas with heads.
That was hot. I mean, what? Anyway, moving forward. The majority of Black conservatives... Are we about to listen, my friend?
I'm sorry, I choked on my gum.
Don't die while I'm... Don't die while I'm talking. If you're gonna die, go die somewhere else where nobody can hear you.
Well, he can't because he's already dead.
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Proceed.
Yeah. So, the majority of Black conservatives in reality aren't like... Well, like Candace Owens and Tatum. The majority of them are more like... Are either very moderate. There are some that are actually pro-Black. And there are some that are like extremely pro-Black. Like the super extremists. Sometimes even the worst kind of extremists. Like, I don't know, Black separatists. Like the one thing, like the Uncle Toms and the moderate Black conservatives, one that all of these people have in common is that they're anti-LGBTQ in one degree or another. Some find it disgusting, but have the libertarian liberal mindset about it. Others are also libertarian about it, but they strongly discourage it in their own families. Others strongly discourage it within the Black community altogether. And a certain minority are just 100% like full-on Black Nazi about it. But that's just a small minority.
Black Nazis? How does that even...
It's weird. They're hoteps. If you wanna be like get like technical with it, hoteps are basically like the Black version of white supremacists.
Black supremacists.
It's great.
I remember back when the olden days of like internet atheism, where Ghazi Toadsdough was kind of pretty prominent. Like his nickname used to be Black Hitler. because he just, I mean, basically, yeah, he would say things like, he wouldn't call it gay because he's like, well, gay is a white concept. He goes, but I'm same gender loving, which I've seen a lot of people like use that now because like it is more inclusive of all genders. Like I love the same gender. Um, but yeah,
funny.
he was basically like all white people need to die. All white, like he was very much like white people need to be sterilized, and that the white people can have like a breeding program to keep their numbers in check. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, but yeah, well that's why we used to nickname him Black Hitler in the 80s.
He sounds like a Black Hitler, Jesus.
No.
So, when we look at gay acceptance by race, black people are the lowest, but increasing at a more or less the same rate as other demographics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna send the link to pull up the statistics. I have it pulled up right here. And let's see, it has like the black gay acceptance is like way lower. Not way lower, but they're a little bit lower than the white and Hispanic. The white and Hispanic are kind of overlapping a little bit, surprisingly. Originally, I thought that like Hispanics were going to be like super low, and like blacks are going to be like slightly above them. And that turns out not to be the case when we look at the data.
I would want to, yeah, I would thought Latinos would be pretty high up there too, just because like there is like, especially I guess in Brazil and in South America, like they do have a lot of like what we would perceive as gay culture. But is the number kind of going up steadily at the same rate, or is it seeing more like of a erratic jump from time to time?
Oh, they're all like going up pretty steadily. It's just like they're like blacks and whites are like overlapping. Not Hispanic and whites are overlapping. Black is like a little bit below them, and they're both just kind of steadily increasing at pretty much the same rate.
Yeah, that's true.
And like, despite what the numbers say, being in favor of gay marriage does not factor in one's personal attitude towards homosexuality.
Really?
Oh yeah. Wait till you hear this. I would argue that plenty of people who are in favor of gay marriage would say something like this. Well, personally, I believe being gay is wrong and sinful, but I fully respect your right to be in that lifestyle.
Yes.
The liberal mindset I mentioned earlier.
Mm.
Liberal.
Fucking libs.
Can't live with them, can't live without them.
Can't live with them, can't live without them.
Right.
Well, I don't know about the living without part.
Well, we need their votes.
Well, their votes are very valuable, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
See, some people may think that like the liberal attitude, the liberal mindset is completely harmless, and as those types of people, well, at least they're not letting their personal beliefs affect the lives of others. Spoiler alert, they are. People only really have that live and let live attitude when it comes to how they treat strangers. However, when it comes to their family members, especially if it's the parents over their children, it can cause disastrous effects. An individual will not give a single fuck if a stranger or a distant family member comes out as gay and wants to live like that, that quote-unquote gay lifestyle. But they will adamantly discourage it within their own household and or family unit or their community. I personally believe this is especially prevalent within the black community. I have no data on this. This is just an observation I'm making on my own. There may or may not be some data out there, but I haven't found any on it so far. And to me, this whole thing shows when you look at the data for same-sex couples by race. So I'm only inferring this, the fact that I believe that this is especially prevalent within the black community, by looking at same-sex couples by race. When when you look at same-sex couples by race, the statistics show that for white people it is 82.4%, and for Black or African Americans it's 6.3%.
That's actually surprising to me because, like, you'd think those numbers would be a lot lower. I personally think those numbers would be a lot lower for white people, and I thought the numbers would be like not super much higher, but a decent realm higher for the Black community. Just considering how many Black creators are gay, how much influence Black culture's had on the gay community at large. That's actually really surprising on my end.
Yeah, to me it shows a lot of whitewashing and how like staunchly averse to this lifestyle of the Black community. And
Damn Europeans.
furthermore, Asians are 4%. Two or more races are like 3.3%. There's two or more races. Obviously, means like a fucking interracial. Some other race, I'm guessing this is like miscellaneous, is like 3%. American Indian or Alaskan Native is 0.9%. And Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders 0.1%.
Wow.
All of these are really, really low.
The Asian one checks out for me because I always laugh at the weeaboos that act like Japan is this like Japan and like China are these like super progressive nations, and I'm like, no, they're super fucking conservative.
They're really not. It's only their it's only the art and some old anime was really killing it when it comes to that type of stuff, like progressive stuff. Recently, it has gotten, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, well I mean like, there was a gal I was talking to, and she was in Seoul, and like she'd have random Asian dudes come up and try to kiss her, and she'd be like, no thank you, and they were like, oh no, this is a cultural thing in like Korea, that's how we run that. And she went and told the police officer, and he's like, I mean, you're an American.
I mean, you guys do that. You are an American.
Yeah, like you're an American over here, like just deal with it.
Jeez.
Yeah,
I'll
Asian countries aren't the paradise that people tend to think of them as.
Yeah, it's just a shame because like when you look at Japan especially, when you look at their old anime, they were really, really very progressive in terms of the stuff that they were putting out. And then like over the years they got a little bit more conservative. It's disappointing. Now I sound like a one of the old heads. Back in my day, even though it wasn't really back in my day, I wasn't alive at that time.
Well, I kind of also want to do this too. Is that it's interesting to me just because, like as we talked about with Stonewall, like literally gay bars exist in America because of people of color. A lot of like some of the greatest song artists, were people of color and were also gay. So I think it's also like Calon said, like so much of gay history revolves around Black culture, but we strip that away from people. So it's like there is that sense like, oh yeah, this is a white male concept because like that's where we pin our history.
Because for some reason,
I think that has a factor into this. Like because like
it's kind of like from what I remember reading in a research paper that a lot of domestic abuse in the Black community is the result of Black men adopting a Eurocentric view of women.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that.
And well, this Eurocentrism extends also to LGBT issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how all that crap goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you whitewash something, it just becomes garbage.
Well, not even that, but just also how prevalent it is and how little it is talked about and how little it's understood. Like, I'm not going to sit here and play the game that we're all academics. By no stretch of the imagination are any of us academics, masters in the field. But yeah, like I don't see a lot of people doing content like this where we talk about such issues. So I think that's the big thing too, is that like by talking about it and recognizing this stuff, it does go a long way. Because I mean, when I listen to you guys' when I listen to y'all's posts, it's like, wow, like how did I never know that before? Why was this never talked about?
Oh, what's this never talked
Mm-hmm.
about? Well, because that's America sucks. America only tells you what they want to tell you. A lot of like well, this movement will never get popular unless we make it a white thing. So we're gonna make it a white thing, and we're gonna give you guys your rights. Don't worry about it.
We're gonna give you rights to be white.
We're gonna give you rights to be white.
You have the right to remain white.
You have the right to remain white. Wait, I just messed up that point.
Still works though, actually. That's the sad part.
Like as we did touch on this a little bit, and like everything that we have just discussed, I'm gonna like actually like because all this stuff that we had just like briefly discussed is further prevalent when like I go further into my studies, the whole white culture thing, because a lot of it I think it is what I'm about to read is a result of that. So like all of what the data shows, this type of thing is what further perpetuates ideas that makes like queerness look like a quote unquote white culture thing. Like there are tons of issues regarding the false dichotomy of homosexuality and blackness. It goes into why so many black movements would often leave queer folks behind, why so many like black queer folks experience racism and fetishization from their white counterparts. It ignores the fact that queer P.O.C are statistically more likely to suffer violent crime. It oftentimes conservative black people will point at Africa as like the divine example of that being queer is a white culture thing. Even though Africa has been brutally criminalizing homosexuality. Some countries just only recently removed the death penalty for the crime of being gay. It also overlooks the fact that homophobia in Africa was imposed upon that continent during, good old-fashioned European colonization.
The scramble for Africa.
Good old scramble for Africa. I will delve deeper into all of these issues in the future. Like, not when I say future, I mean like distant future. I'll have to research these things like more extensively. But I do want to talk more about, like I said before, the Black Panthers and Eldritch Cleaver. So, Eldritch Cleaver is like, oh my god, fly, please. So, Eldritch Cleaver was one of the early leaders of the Black Panther Party. I believe it was from what I found, it's like 1967 to 19 up to 8. Oh no, what happened? Oh wait, 1971, 1967 and 1971. I know what happened. It messes up the number 7 for some reason. So like whenever I type in whenever I type in the number 7, it just doesn't come out unless I press the button hard enough. It's frustrating. So like before his years in a party, he had a pretty hefty criminal background. In his early teens, he spent time in detention centers for several petty crimes. Some, I would probably say that majority of them were stuff that he didn't commit. Some of them probably were stuff that he didn't commit, that he did commit, but there was no like legitimate reason for him to be put in prison for that crime that he committed in the first place anyway. Like something like weed or something. There's no reason weed should be illegal, but
victimless crimes.
Yeah, marijuana. Actually, at 18 years old, around like the year 1953, he was thrown in like big boy jail for having, the devil lettuce. Man,
For
I
having an
remember.
affair with Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. He had a date. He had a big old date with Mary Jane, and then landed them in the big boy slammer.
For those of you who are interested, we are technically reshooting this episode. But when I first heard of this person, I never heard of him. I was like, oh, dude, this is just like a poor innocent black man, victim of the white man's tyranny. Yeah, this is another thing too. Smoking pot is not a fucking crime. Like, you cannot convince me that there's a crime going on unless there's a fucking victim. So be like, oh yeah, smoking weed's a crime. Possession of what? Of a fucking plant. Like, I caught you with some oregano in your pocket. Gotta go. That's 25 to life, boy.
That's 25 to life.
Right? You happen a plant, and keep in mind, by the way, that up until I was a few years ago when weed got legalized in the state, there was a lot of people that still believed that like weed was just as bad, if not worse, than heroin.
People are so dumb.
Wait, it's not just as
Right.
bad as heroin?
Yeah, well, it's a gateway drug, so that's what they used to gaffle a lot of like people of color up for. It's like, oh yeah, because you gonna use this to go incriminate some poor white kids. It's like, wow, fuck you.
You see, it's a gateway drug. First is marijuana, then you're like, you're sniffing crack out your ass.
Yeah, do you know what marijuana is a gateway drug to? Obesity and diabetes, because it's like
and
yeah,
diabetes.
eating shit you'd never think you'd eat. Like the only people who have to fear a bunch of potheads is whoever's working the 7-Eleven nearby at 4 a.m. That's it.
First is marijuana, then you're in the ER with cancer. What?
Right.
Huh? What?
First it's marijuana, then it's crocodile.
Huh?
Oh
what?
my god.
Oh god. Oh god.
Yeah, it will reach the crocodile, clearly. I'm sure people will get that reference.
Somebody will get that.
I have no idea.
You've never heard of crocodile?
I've never heard of crocodile.
It's a Russian drug where you ingest.
Oh, okay. Is it like the Russian version of bath salts?
Oh, it's a lot worse because it eats your flesh.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good.
That's Pog. I would love to have my flesh eaten.
Okay, that's a legitimate drug we should probably be on the stick out for, but not the devil's lettuce.
Not the devil's lettuce. Well,
Yeah,
it's called devil's lettuce for a reason now.
If you want to throw fucking Eldritch in jail, throw him in jail for an actual reason, of which he's gonna have plenty in a second, I'm sure. Don't throw him in jail because he had some spicy fucking oregano.
So, after Cleaver was thrown in jail for having the audacity to have the worst drug ever known to man called marijuana, literally that when he smoked that marijuana, it killed 3 babies. Despicable. Throw him in prison.
It killed Dolly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Fucking killed. Every time you smoke a blunt, an angel loses its wings.
Yeah. That's why he was thrown in jail. And 3 years later, at the age of 21 in 1956, this is after he got out of jail. He was convicted of rape and attempted murder and put in prison once again until he was released on parole in 1966.
How do you
look,
get
an actual
for raping and murdering?
Yeah,
Well, so I can actually answer that question, but also, hey, look, an actual fucking crime. So when it comes to rape and all this good stuff, for your viewers, rape was not taken seriously as a crime until maybe the early 2000s. Pretty much anytime there was a rape, the only time rapes were taken seriously is if middle-class white woman was raped by what can only be assumed was a person of color. That was the only time rape was taken seriously. Marital rape happened all the fucking time. No one gave a shit.
Yep, no one cared about marital rape. It was actually a normal thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was actually, yeah, I mean, like, literally, the rape of prostitutes happened all the time. Like, it's just one of those things that, like, when people talk about how we live in a rape culture, that's pretty much what I bring up. And the only reason, by the way, that they took the white woman raped by black man rape seriously is because that was, like, intermixing of people, and you could get like it was basically the racism took precedent. That they couldn't give a shit less if it was like a white woman being raped by a white man. It was the fact that it was a black man involved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the funny thing is, what he's saying right now will be further solidified when you hear what he says in his book while he was in prison, because he does admit to this later on, and you're gonna hear some very crazy things, and
He seems
part of it is
all...
like really fucked up on his part, but another part of it is also like really fucked up on society's part, like what he described as like nobody cared until it was a white woman. So just listen closely, and then we'll talk about that after I get to it. So like he got sorry, my brain. Like after he was put in prison for that, he was then released on parole in like 1960s. Then he got put back in prison for violating his parole because apparently he was like involved with individuals who had possession of firearms. But after he was like put in prison for that, he was bailed out for $50,000. However, during his time in prison, he had time to think. And his thinking led to him becoming vastly more radical and passionate about the liberation of black people. He even
Well, that's good.
Yeah. You see, that's another thing. When, like I said before, a lot of like black conservatives really aren't the most like anti-black at all. They're very pro-black, and I would go as far as say this dude is pretty much fucking conservative. But like, there are a lot of black people today that think like him, are all about black liberation, and I'll stand with him on that. But everything else, not really.
Oh, you're on board with the rape?
No, the race liberation.
Yeah.
The liberation
Just
of
in
black
case we
people.
have some fucking. Just in case we have some trolls sitting in here and like, oh, this podcast endorses rape. No, we don't.
Some turf is just gonna show up over here. See? You see what they are? Mask is slipping!
Oh, God.
No, that's not what I said. So, he even wrote about like his what were you about to say? Sorry.
Yeah. In what specific ways was he like? You say he was radicalized for supporting the black liberation, black cause. But in what specific ways was he radicalized? Like, was he really about taking more direct action? Was he about being exclusionary? Like,
He
like,
It's
well,
very weird because it's not entirely clear, because some of his like a lot of the sources that I looked at, it seems like he's pretty self-contradictory, because some sources say that he would like some of these are sightings from the stuff that he wrote about in his book Soul on Ice. Like he would talk
mhm.
about like separatism and whatnot, but other times like deeply infatuated with white women. I'll get into it a little later on because I talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So like he was, but he was very radical in terms of like just being about like all for the violent revolution and whatnot. Very radical position. He was very outspoken about it. There's even speeches of him like talking about it on YouTube, talking about the
Oh,
unjust prison systems and whatnot. There's a lot. He's based in that department to a degree.
okay. I mean, hey, you know what? Even a blind rodent finds a morsel.
Yeah, that's it's a lot of black conservatives now, you know. So I'm gonna read like one of his writings, which
Mhm.
probably further solidify what I was just now talking about. From my prison cell, I have watched America slowly coming awake. It is not fully awake yet, but there is a soul in the air, and everywhere I see beauty. I have watched the sit-ins, the freedom rides, the Mississippi Blood Summers, demonstrations all over the country, FSM movements, teach-ins, the mounting protests over Lyndon Strangelove's foreign policy. All of this, thousands of little details, show me it is time to straighten up and fly right. This is why I decided to concentrate on my writings and efforts in this area. We are a very sick country. I, perhaps, am sicker than most. Keep the little sentence in mind. I am
How do we have
sicker
a
than most,
self-report?
but I accept that. I told you in the beginning that I am an extremist by nature. It was only right that I should be extremely sick. I was very familiar with the Eldritch who came to prison, but that Eldritch no longer exists, and the one I am now is in some ways a stranger to me. However, a significant part to me is that in his book, he stated he rapes black women for practice in his mission to rape white women, which is something that he felt was, quote, insurrectionary. I'm gonna leave you to ponder that. Because what did you talk
I'd
about
rather
earlier?
not.
How you said rape was never really taken seriously until it
Right,
was a
yeah.
white woman.
Yeah. Excuse me. Well, yeah, it makes sense though. Like, not from like a like this is a good thing to do, but like, what's the greatest? I mean, even this, and we were talking this before the show. Like, what's the greatest fear of like white conservatives right now? And fundamentally, like, I guess I don't really think it extends to black conservatives in the same way. But on a fundamental principle, it's the Great Replacement. It's for white men. It's big buff, bald 12-pack abs that can cut glass black guys are coming to take on young white daughters who all look like all blonde hair, blue eyed Aryan children. And then I think like conversely for black conservatives, it's like another minority is going to rise up and be like the preferred whipping boy of like white people. And so like that makes sense to me where he's like, okay, what's the number one fear? It's almost like the Batman concept, like, okay, what's the fear I have? Bats. Okay, I will now use that fear upon the villain or on the criminal scum so that they won't it's just fear tactics. And the problem is that like that would work if it wasn't a fucking crime and arguably one of the worst crimes.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, he actually did elaborate on that a little bit, because in this book, from the excerpts that I found, he denounced his rape, so to speak. But and he went into how rape was used by white men. Yeah, how white women would rape our black women, and
Yeah,
it's just a way to keep us down. So I'm gonna do the same thing to them. And then he took a step back and looked at that. I was like, that's probably not the best way to go about it, because using the same fear tactic is not getting us anywhere. Because now I'm only being the same person that I fear.
right. Well, not only that, but it's like it's not the same. Like, granted, I mean, rape at a fundamental level is a power concept, but it's not fundamentally the same. Like no offense, he could literally even to this. I'm going to argue this even to this day. You can rape as many women of color as you want. White systems do not give a fuck. Like white people fundamentally, we see this with like the Native American women that go
Yeah.
missing all the time. Like white people don't give a fuck until it's what was that one? I did this intentionally. I forgot her name, but she was the most recent gal. She went missing. She's like an instant influencer on a boyfriend and had her for like 3 days. And everyone was like, "Oh God, where is she? Where is she?" It's like, and in the same time she was missing, there was like over 60 Native American women that went missing. They got zero coverage. Like there was a thing I used to remember, and it was way back when I was listening to radio. I think I was like probably like 12 or 13. But there was a comedian who said like a lot of people kind of gauge the health of this country based on how the young white teenager is doing. So when it's like a little blonde hair, blue eyed Aryan child goes missing, oh my God, it's a horrible thing. We
Oh
have to
no.
stop this. But yeah, like, but anybody else, it's like, well, yeah, but like, it's because they live in the suburbs and they're rich. So like, if the people in the suburbs are like at risk of getting attacked, that's a big deal for a lot of people. But if it's like a person living in the ghetto, well, they live in the ghetto, so like that's just expected of them. It really says a lot about people that like every single person who goes missing should be treated like children go missing all the time.
Yeah, and it sucks because
And we just don't
because
care.
like black people are also part of this problem. Not by fault of our own. It's just like we live in white culture, so it's like
Mhm.
we end up adopting those same advocacy. So a lot of black people end up like not caring about about it when a black child goes missing when they should. But like just like all the other white people, they care exponentially more when it's a white woman. A lot of these racial
Right.
biases ended up being indoctrinated into black people in general, and it's unfortunate. It's horrible. And the only time black people ever really care is when it's when their own community and when it's like close to their like general community. Other than that, not entirely. And part of it goes into how much coverage it gets, and other part of it is like the bias is kind of like ingrained into their psyche with no fault of their own. It's just how it's just
Mhm.
society that we were born into. So it's just like that.
And to put this on gay kids too, mainly because it's I mean it is easier to hide being gay than it is to hide being a person of color.
Yeah, it
This
is
is
easier,
also
but it's not that. It's
well no, but
unbearable because the Nazis
it
found
is
gay people
significant.
still, regardless. It
Well,
is
yeah,
much easier to hide your gayness than it is to hide your blackness still, though. I'm not taking away from that ever.
but the significance of that is like a lot of times when kids go missing that are gay, unless like there's a dig that can be made on gay people, it's rarely ever discussed. Like, oh, this child is a gay child who went missing. It's always like, here's the standard child. So like, and to be fair, like the privileged point of that is that at least you're being discussed, but your identity is being erased. And then I should also look
Yeah,
back on that and go like, at least you're being discussed because people of color don't even get that much.
not that much, unfortunately. Intersectionality is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Eh, it's
Yeah,
somewhat complicated.
when you get into the weeds of it, like on a surface level, it's not that hard to grasp. But like when you actually get into like the weeds and all like the intricacies of it, all of
Implication.
the like all the details and whatnot, it's very complex.
Yeah, when you get to the implications.
So
So
what moved on for Eldritch? So after he got done writing what I would ostensibly say is like black incel dumb.
what? Oh, it
Okay,
gets even
who?
weirder
Oh
because
God.
oh my god, this dude. I, I, well, it's weird, but like we're all familiar. We're all unfortunately very familiar with this ideology. It's like in his book that I'm going to again title "Soul on Ice." One of the last excerpts it was called "To All Black Women, All Black Men." I encourage people to find an audiobook of it or just something to just to see this final part because it is just it's weird. Like I'm not gonna get into the details. I have to find it. Well, I'm gonna point out the most significant parts. Like in the excerpt, he speaks like he's trying to do like a little poem thing. He's like speaking on behalf of all black men, and like all black men are speaking to black women. So like he speaks of like being a dead man, a man that's been dead for over 400 years. Black woman is like a manless woman. The white man stood between us. Like pretty sure you know what he's referencing, right? He's referencing like slavery, all the buck
Right.
breaking and like all the rape and whatnot. If you read between the lines, you can see what he's like actually discussing in his allegory. And he goes even further, and it's even further solidified when like one of the excerpts that quotes is, "The white man was your man and my man." Interesting quote.
Mhm.
And he like also speaks of being emasculated, or like being a shamed, tattered warrior, like slavery, and another part is like buck breaking. And I'm gonna quote another interesting part, which is what is in the heart of all my black brothers for you and all your black sisters. I fear I will fail unless you reach out to me. Tune into me with your antenna of your love, sacred love, in ultimate degree, which you were unable to give. I, being dead, was unworthy to receive. Pretty weird incelly stuff. And he
Yeah,
go on.
it seems like someone who's writing something that's supposed to sound deep, but they don't actually know what something that sounds deep would actually sound like.
It is so weird because like it's like, my God, it's like not much has really changed when you think about it. Because we see
Right?
this type
Yeah.
of stuff going on today. It's just like, oh my God, people are writing us stuff like this weird crap even back then. Oh my God. Like there's even more
Well,
stuff going into like about how his manhood can only be redeemed through the love of a black woman. Yeah, that's not weird.
yeah. That what? Did people of color accidentally invent the incel movement too?
I, bro, I would say it was invented by white men, and black men have been indoctrinated into incel culture, like way back in in like the 30s.
I'll take it.
Based on no research, no evidence whatsoever. I'm just gonna infer that. Like there was
It was
also
probably
talks of like blue fire burning steel out of my ball. Weird, just lots of talks of balls in that excerpt. I do encourage you to look at it. What were you about to say, Calon?
Oh, I just simply said, yeah, it's probably white people's fault.
Indirectly or directly, regardless, it is white
But
man's fault.
well, both.
Both. Yep, pretty much both.
You can't underestimate the white man and his skill at oppression.
And the last part
never
gets
under
never underestimate what?
never underestimate a white man's ability to fuck shit up.
So they fuck up our black man. So these last few points that I'm gonna like lay out get especially like weird. Again, he's speaking in allegories here. Like he's trying to be poetic.
Oh,
Go on.
we're already not into the weird shit. I'm glad.
It it depends on your opinion of it, because to me it gets like so much weirder. Like then he gets into like it's like weird. He speaks of like the allegory is like he's speaking about white men as like this beast, and then like he goes into like hearing the wailing sounds of a woman's cry. Like the whole thing is allegorical. He's basically saying that like black women are like damsels in distress, like the white men are these beasts just looming over them, and the white women are just screaming for them. Like the black woman, like I heard our women beg for mercy, like beg for me, beg and plead, and then I heard a snapping sound, a breaking sound, a final sound, the sound of death. I heard you, and I hear you now. Your scream came like a searing bolt of lightning.
And then I teleported behind him and said nothing personal.
Nothing personnel, kid. That's funny. That like very emblematic of what he would write. If he were still alive today, that would be something he would write. I'm calling it.
Right? Jesus.
And like it's the final part, like he gets into like this bit where it's like he's talking about the teeth of fire biting into the delicate flesh of African motherhood, and he's like,
Wait.
Go on, because it gets a little.
That's not his quote though. That's from somebody else.
He stole this quote?
I'm pretty sure he stole it from Frederick fucking Douglass.
Oh my God! If he did, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll go back and check it out, but I'm pretty sure Frederick Douglass has a quote
this
about
directly from an excerpt in his book. Like I'm quoting his stuff.
I'm pretty sure Frederick Douglass made a quote about how African people are literally ripped ripped from the arms of their mothers in Africa by the teeth of the white man.
He probably did steal it from Frederick Douglass. Because he would also refer to black women, like, in the last few sentences. He's, like, referring to black women allegorically as, like, the sacred womb that incubated Ethiopia and Nubia and gave forth pharaohs. And he would name, like, a bunch of historical black figures. I'm pretty sure Frederick Douglass was one of them. He mentioned, I'll give him a little bit of credit. He did mention Sojourner Truth and, why am I forgetting her name now? Fuck. God, why am I forgetting her name? Jesus Christ. I'm a failure to the black community. It was Sojourner Truth, and I'm thinking of the Underground Railroad. Getting her name.
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman. Yeah, he did mention those two. I'll give him credit for that. He actually mentioned black women. But all them like
here it is.
A lot of black figures coming from the
Frederick Douglass.
Black women.
Yeah, Frederick Douglass wrote in a letter speaking about the children of Africa were ripped from the arms of our mothers by the gnashing teeth of the white supremacist system. Yeah, he stole that from Frederick. I mean, he's changed some shit, but he stole that from Frederick Douglass.
He kind of took the allegory and reworked it into his own, like, weird little twisted version of, like, let's just be real, just the black version of misogyny.
Yeah, what a fuck.
Dude is insane. Like, I do encourage people to actually, like, look at that final excerpt. It is so... I'm not even doing it justice, because, like, I don't want to sit here for 15 minutes reading the whole thing. Like, the whole entire thing.
Right.
It's like, going forward, regarding his views on interracial, interracial relationships, like, I don't even know if he's, like, pro-interracial marriage, because he did talk about, like, it seems that he's in favor of interracial sex. I'll get into it a little bit. Like...
Oh, I wonder why, seeing as he wants to rape white women.
Pretty much.
What a weird line. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, if he did draw that line, what a weird line to draw. I'm in favor of literally violating people and breaking their spirit to a point where they're permanently scarred. But, consenting to the option, that's where I draw. What a creepy fuck.
See, this is the weird thing, though, when you think about it, right? He's sitting here, like, romanticizing how, like, black women are crying for help and the black man has been broken and emasculated by, like, the white beast. And, like, there's nothing this humbled, weakened, tattered, warrior black male can do about it. Crying, like talking about how the black woman is a helpless damsel who needs saving. Yet he rapes black women as practice.
Right.
He's part of the reason why they're screaming in agony. Like, I just want to get into that a little bit. So, which would make sense why his interracial marriage or sexual relationships may or may not be inconsistent, because his own advocacies and his own logic and values are very inconsistent. I'll go a little.
Or you asking? Okay.
So, like, while he was in jail for, like, I think this was after he got put in prison for rape, he, like, had a picture of a white pinup girl on his wall, and one of the prison guards, like, tore it down because how dare this black man gawk at our sacred white woman. And, like, after that happened, like, Cleaver, like, poses a question to himself. He's like, why would I have a white woman on my wall rather than a black woman? So he felt guilty. He was like, was it true? Did I really prefer white girls over black? I did. Yes, I did. And then he speaks on, like, this very real, we have discussed this a little bit earlier, like, this very real white indoctrination on how, like, how white women are basically kind of like dangled over their eyes like a carrot on a stick. They're like this beautiful, uh, lovely angel that they're allowed to look at, seek out, and are sought after, but they're 110% unattainable. Because that's just how the times were back then. And so, like, how basically white culture just gave them, it's kind of indoctrinated him into white beauty standards. Him and a lot of other black men. So, like, despite going into this, though, he does not seem to oppose interracial marriage at all. Considered to be a just thing. Like, he considered, like, interracial marriage to be, like, a just thing that would supersede racial injustice. And, like, he kind of, like, envisioned a future that is colorblind and free of racism with, like, interbreeding through, like, pure heterosexual love. Yes, he stressed this, pure heterosexual love. And part of that, like, has a lot to do with him falling in love with Beverly Axelwood. I haven't read entirely onto her, but she was like, I think she was she's a white woman. She's an attorney. She was like a social justice attorney. I think she was like, I think she was aligned with the Black Panthers, but not like within the Black Panthers. You know what I mean?
What was her name again?
Beverly Axelwood.
Sorry, I'm racking my brain.
You can go ahead and look it up. From the little bit that I've seen, like she was like a little like she was kind of an activist in a sense. I think she worked with the Black Panther. I don't think she was a Black Panther.
No, yeah, she worked with Huey Newton and Mark Comfort. She was one of the people that went after Dennis Banks of America. She was a lawyer for the in Chicago who helped them. She was the pocket lawyer. Because basically the Black Panthers knew if they got a public defender, they'd be fucked. So they kept her in her pocket, and she would basically provide legal advice. Her thing was that she would, if she didn't want to do the case outright, she would provide like their public defender with all the information he needed to do the job. So if the Black Panthers got stuck with a public defender, he wouldn't like screw them over in the end. Yeah, no, I don't know. Well, I know about her. She is. Yeah, no, she was a big influence in Black Panthers for getting a lot of shit done that they couldn't normally do like out in public. It was actually how a lot of the Black Panthers who would like you'll see them like she would do research for them. I think there's a Netflix movie where I think it's called the Chicago 7 or something, where the Black Panthers are constantly passing up like information to one of their guys. She would be one of the pocket lawyers who would help supply them with that, so they could spread it around constantly. So instead of having like a set of legal team that had to be represented by them, they could do pro bono work, and then they could just have these numerous cases. Like it's the same case in two different states. You could just basically mail the information they needed expressed, and then you could have the same defense in two different states. It was really genius how they did it.
Yeah, that's actually like really, really smart how they did that. That's clever on their part, to be honest with you. Kind of
listeners, this was
quite a few bullets to her.
Listeners, this was at a time where you could legally get away with this. You can't do this shit now. If you go into a courtroom and hand someone over something people's comments, you're gonna have a lovely bailiff come up and talk to you about how court proceedings are supposed to be.
And you can't do that. That's just messed up. You're under arrest.
Yeah, we let the black people get away with it, and it made it harder to gaff them up. So we ain't gonna let your ass get away with it now.
I ain't gonna let your ass get away with it. We don't want to be unfair now. So like, yeah. So when he described like his love, essentially for Beverly Axelwood, he went on record. This is a quote that he made himself. Alan, why am I hearing myself now? It's like suddenly I'm getting feedback on my own voice.
Weird.
I don't hear anything.
Alan, no. All right. So like when he was describing his love for Beverly Axelwood, he would say that this is a quote from him: "It is not ourselves alone who are involved in what is happening to us. It is really a complex movement taking place, which we are mere parts. We represent historical forces, and it is really these forces that are coalescing and moving toward each other." Like, I assume from when he's saying that, I think the feeling between them is mutual. But ultimately, obviously, he did not marry her. He ended up marrying a light skinned woman instead.
It's actually kind of interesting too, though, 'cause, like he does kind of seem to have an infatuation with people. But I also think that at the time, like, and I don't know how this goes for people of color. Some of the comments want to sound off, but I can understand where like the fetishization of women goes a long way, especially since like right now, like there's a big push to put like women of color and women who are more like normal, or I'd say more like standard day-to-day body types in fashion media. And I think that's wonderful. But then I also think that like a lot of the media that is doing this is more like we're not actually putting like we're not doing this because we actually give a shit. We just recognize that like the sexual preference of the zeitgeist has changed. People kind of like more like thicker women, and the reason I say that is because like you see a lot with like Kim Kardashian, where like Kim
Yeah.
Kardashian was like super thin until it was like, oh, women who are thick are now like more popular, and then it was like, okay, time to have a big old fat ass full of silicone and shit. And then as soon as that was no longer the trend, it's like I'm back to being white and being like a moderate businesswoman. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
I hate when people like chase trends. Like, I do appreciate. I'm gonna like ramble on this a little bit. I I I do appreciate the appreciation of thickness, but the thing that frightens me is that it's gonna end up being a switching thing where like slimmer women are going to like start being insecure, and like
Right.
well, like now like thick and curvy and whatnot is like the ultimate standard, and if you're not that, then you're basically garbage. And it's like, no, can we not? Can we like? Can we be accepting of all body types, please? We don't want like a switch of we don't want to like trend hop and like make a new standard. We want there to be no standard.
Well, and also to love a body type or to spread body positivity, it's not just about like loving all types in a sexual way. It's about like if someone takes off their shirt and they have like a belly or a pooch, you don't you keep your shirt back on, or like oh you like having a good time, yeah, you're looking great. Like it's just like hey, what's up, man? Hey, how you doing?
It
Hot
shouldn't
out
be
today.
like
Yeah, no shit, dude. Actually, yeah, it should just be like it's same as like saying hello to somebody in the street. It's like actual like when it's completely normalized. It's like a woman taking off her shirt and being a larger woman is just like yeah, that's like just flushing the toilet. It's just something you do. It's just something you see.
and it also does like another minor part of this is why men are like aren't as sexualized as women are. Women are sexualized in media than men are, and like when a man gets sexualized, it's like considered like gross and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. A lot of it is just I don't know. Can social standards suck. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. And
Like
I will say this:
it should be more about like not being averse to uh body and sexuality and whatnot.
now I will say this to drag it back to Carver or Cleaver. I do think that Cleaver is suffering from like a social issue of like the fetishization of black men in like the reverse way. So not necessarily like the Great Replacement, like all black men have giant 12-foot half-pound schlongs that they have to keep in like their they got to duct tape it up there. I think he's
Yeah.
been like I think he's been reversed of that. Like for so long, he's been kind of fed to believe that like black women can't be beautiful and that white beauty standards are the true beauty standards. And speaking at the time that he's dealing with, I think that was kind of what was lending to this a little bit. Like kind of being denied having his pinup poster in prison. Everywhere he looks, he sees white women, and white women are kind of standard beauty. That I kind of think that maybe he's suffering from so much internal trauma. That's kind of why he wants to go that way. Like, not to say that that rape is a sexual fetish, but that he's kind of been denied the ability to even seek a relationship with a white woman. So to him, like, it's not only is it a form of reclaiming power, but it's also a form of like securing his own masculinity as a fetish. There's a term for
Yeah,
it, but I forget what it's specifically
I
called.
forgot. There is a term. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. That a lot of it, yeah. I mean, the culture around him, as you can see, like when you like look at like all the stuff that he's talked about and said, that all the stuff that he said he's experienced and all the stuff that he's done, like white culture at the time really fucked him up.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get some because I'm going to bonk my head
No
against the
worries.
wall.
We'll vamp for a bit. Um, I will say this though. I don't want to have anybody misinterpret me here and think that I'm defending. Obviously, what he did through raping people was bad, and then to turn rape into a praxis is incredibly bad. That's like to quote a famous lefty socialist, not good optics, my guy. But I will say that like I kind of it's not a great idea to just outright demonize rapists when we're doing a show like this where we have to kind of compare the notes and look at how this person impacted the LGBT and P.O.C spectrums. To just outright be like, oh, well, he's a rapist, so we can't talk about him is kind of a problem because obviously this person is complex, and the reason why he was doing these horrible things does have a stem in white supremacy, so it is important to talk about. But I just wanted to clear that up. Like, I'm not speaking of him in a way of like analyzing a person. Like, clearly, a very damaged person with a lot of issues to work through. But us just sitting here and dunking on him isn't gonna work. And when we first shot this video, I was kind of like, yeah, dude, this is just some poor helpless black guy who got gaffled up by a system that's racist. And it's like, no, it's actually more complex than that. And again, like POC and gay, I mean, POC and gay history is nothing if not just a constant carousel of misery. So, I mean, I feel if we're going to be in the muck, we should take some time to actually analyze the various blends and shades.
Analysis is good.
Yeah, analysis with the intent to learn is good. Analysis with the intent to just like promote, not so much. Looking at you,
Exactly.
debate bros.
What's good now?
I was talking about. I was explaining that because like we had shot this video beforehand. That like I originally thought like Carver because I never heard of Cleaver before. I was like, oh, this Cleaver's just a poor innocent black man that's been fucked by the system. And then we find like, oh no, he's actually a rapist. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. No, I don't condone that. And then we're talking about how like if we're gonna actually have this educational process about talking about a person, like we owe it to actually analyze them. Like we shouldn't just be like, oh, he's a rapist, let's not talk about him. It's like no, he had an impact in the community, so we have to like actually look at why he was important and why he had this following. If he wasn't this horrible person, then how do you manage to keep a following? That's we're analyzing an individual in the context of something, so it's important to form a complex opinion.
Yeah, to try to understand what the fuck went wrong with this person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So continuing on to another subject regarding Cleaver is what I can describe as like some form of mild homophobia. Like homophobia that I'm pretty sure all of us have been indoctrinated by. Even queer folk have also been indoctrinated into this form of homophobia, this like passive homophobia. I know I've been there. I was there, and I was even a staunch transphobe myself. So like,
Yeah, you should hear people in the audience should at some point hear what we trans people call ourselves. You can't be more transphobic than a closeted trans person.
Really though, you really can. I was really, really transphobic back then until I stopped. So like, with that in mind, he goes on record. He himself was not like a huge fan of James Baldwin. You know, I'm pretty sure someone here is more well read on like James Baldwin, right?
I have a video planned for him, but I haven't started
Yeah,
researching.
because I remember you mentioning him once. Like
Yeah.
he was not like the biggest fan of James Baldwin. Like he goes on record saying he felt something like there was some excerpts that he said he felt something discomforting about him. Like despite having grown up being a fan of his writings. Like he accused Baldwin of being a self-hating Negro.
Yeah, he's not the only. He's not alone in that summation.
Yeah, it turns out there were a lot of there were a lot of black people criticizing Baldwin for being a self-hating Negro. The little bit that I've read, he's not the only one who felt this way about him. And he believed that his book, Nobody Knows My Name, depicts hatred for black people, when in actuality it was more of a critique on black heterosexual males at the time. That possibly a critique of the heterosexual males that were just like giving him hate. like we were just talking about a little bit earlier. And he believed that Baldwin was like too sympathetic to whiteness, and he also believed he, as well as many other like black gay men at the time, were like assimilated into whiteness. Because unfortunately at that time, not too different from now, we're like again, there's like this very false dichotomy of homosexuality and blackness. So like black gay men are pretty much like, you know, stuck between two worlds, just like so criticizing like black heterosexual man means you're criticizing the black community altogether. It's a cancer within the black community. It still stands today, and it's really horrible. Like one of his quotes would be like, "Strike the homosexual, the scapegoat, sign of chaos and process, is to return the community to normality, to create boundaries around blackness. Rights that indeed white men are obliged to recognize." That quote was just a little bit significant to me. You know, I'll just leave that as it is. So, Cleaver joined the Black Panther Party in '67. At the time, it was only about like 2 months old, and he was initially drawn to the party due to their dedication to armed militarism. He joined as a minister of information, which is basically like the spokesperson of the party. And despite kind of sort of denouncing his rapey advocacies and tendencies and whatnot, his misogyny and homophobia and whatnot continued to thrive, as he was the one infamous for coining the phrase "pussy power," and which is an idea that black women would deny sex to those that did not vote for the party.
We would actually see this today in the form of all the white women that started dressing up in like a Handmaid's Tale garb once Roe v. Wade was overturned, and pretending like that wasn't the reality for like women of color for fucking generations.
Yeah, access to contraception was. I've actually looked it up. It's harder for black women even still today. Like contraception, abortion access, it's all like.
I do kind of find it funny how that's another thing that like white culture ultimately stole off of black culture is like, hey, fun like it reads a lot like how the incels, I think they call it like the transactional or the the sexual marketplace. That's what the incels call it. And Carver's kind of locked into this with like, hey, since women kind of have like the ultimate control of the sexual marketplace, just don't offer up sexual gratification to men that don't do what we say, and we'll be good. And it's like this is sexual objectification. Like literally, this is sexual objectification. You just switch to whoever's specifically doing it. Like instead of men sexually objectifying women, you're having women sexually objectify themselves.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's always on the part. That's even weirder. That's the worst part about it, because it's always on the part of the woman being the one that's best being sexualized. It's awful.
Well, yeah, because that's because Cleaver didn't have a fucking pussy. I guarantee you, if Cleaver had a fucking vagina, this would be a totally different conversation. And not even like if Cleaver was a woman. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying if Cleaver was literally a man in all senses and identified as a man and represented his societal role as a man, but his genitalia was that of a vagina, he would have a totally different outlook on this whole like pussy power thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. He would not be coining that term at all.
Fuck no.
And although Cleaver was one person, he was very influential within the Black Panther Party because, like stated before, he joined and he became like spokesperson like around 2 months after it started. Like because of him, like misogyny was kind of the norm. Not even just because of him and because of the culture at the time. Like misogyny was very normal. And Cleaver, like everything I described Cleaver, he portrayed one of the worst examples. Him being one of the worst examples, he perpetuated all of this toxicity within the party, and it ended up becoming. It ended up giving it a really rocky start because female party members were otherized in a sense, and they were part of a separate hierarchical chain of command. Like they were even like separated by name. They were just referred to as pantherettes, not panthers. And apparently there are some instances where male party members had raped or sexually assaulted female party members. Pretty sure there were like several sources like going into this being a common occurrence within a Black Panther Party.
But because it was the 1970s and 1980s, and it was black women, nobody gave a shit.
Yep. It was all A-okay. Just don't do it to all white women.
Right.
So not only that, but as we all know, the Black Panther Party did far more than like armed militia of male Negroes just storming capitals and shit. They, in fact, had several programs providing free food, free clothes, like all kinds of resources that poor black folks needed. And Cleaver, our Chadley man, looked at something like that and decided to call it sissy. Like another like toxic masculine thing, right?
Yo, this guy is in fact this guy is in fact a proto-incel, dude. He looks at like
he really is like one of those. He embodies the incelness when you think about it.
Yeah, like he sees like it's this whole saying like what is a man, and it's like, you know, a man is someone who provides for his family, but not in like clothes or food. It's someone who like gives freely of themselves to others and helps out those in need. And here's this guy looking at that exact thing, and he's like, nah, man, we need to be like waving guns around and fucking shooting shit and being like all alpha. Oh my god. And he writes books too. He writes books that are like hyper masculine that justifies his rapiness. This dude literally he was the first incel.
First black incel. Masquerading as an alpha male.
Dude, I don't know if this term already exists because, I mean, nihili sub sole novum, but I feel we now refer to this type of misogyny among black men as misogynoir.
I like it.
I'm sure that's a term that already exists for something else because like there is no such thing as originality. But yeah, like this is misogynoir if I ever.
That sounds great. I like that. Massage noir.
Massage noir, yeah.
So needless to say, Cleaver was just a fucking mess. And like, Cleaver left the Black Panthers over a dispute between him and Huey Newman. Cause see, Newman wanted to focus primarily on like all the community service, all those sissy things that we shouldn't be focusing on that. And Cleaver wanted to focus primarily on revolutionary action. Me personally, I think we can focus on both.
Well, not only can you focus on both, but like, what's that old, I mean, I hate that, like, I'm literally being forced to quote Hitler here, but it's a really good quote. For every man on the front line, there must be at least 8 men behind him. For every man who wields a weapon, there must be a man who makes the bullets, a man who stitches the cloth, a man who kneads the soles of the boots. Like, oh my god, like, literally, like, you can't have one without the other. Like, yeah, it's great we have soldiers, but someone's got to make the soldiers soup, and someone's got to fucking make the uniforms, someone's got to make the bullets.
Because, like, otherwise, what exactly are we fighting for?
Yeah, really. I mean, like, revolutions have to be innate. Like, I mean, and this is something too. My partner recently got me into watching Lelouch of the Rebellion, Code Geass. I didn't watch it as a kid. Like, it just an anime I slept on. But like in like the 3rd episode, the main character figures out like, boy, I just can't keep showing up and using these like rebel factions as ostensibly like assault troops. I have to actually have people that are willing to fight and hold the line when shit starts going bad. Like, and he kind of figures out like a revolution is a people, not just like a functionality of military tactics. And it's hilarious to me that like this dude is literally falling for the same track. Like he's running in reverse. Like, fuck all the world building and all the goodwill that gets people to fight for our cause. Let's just go out there and shoot some white dudes and take some white women hostage. Apparently I'm fucking Conan the Barbarian.
Hell yeah, Conan the Barbarian. It's bludgeon some white folks.
Oh my god, dude, Cleaver, what is best in life? To kill your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their wisdom.
Damn, that really is Cleaver.
Oh my god, that's the sad part though. That is Cleaver.
Alright. I'm gonna speed run the end of Cleaver's like story arc. Sense. Like after that little dispute, like Cleaver like faced imprisonment after like a violent shootout. He jumped bail and fled to Cuba. Then he went to Algeria and then to North Korea, and after his return to the US, during his time in North Korea, his ideology changed quite drastically, some sources say, but to me, I think it just took its natural conclusion. Cleaver became a born-again Christian, a GOP Republican, and a Mormon follower of Sun Myung Moon.
Dude, okay, Mormons, put that on like your recruitment poster. Like, if you think we're bad, like go to North Korea. It'll make you find fucking Joseph Smith. Dude, you became a Mormon.
My man became a Mormon.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at least it wasn't a Baptist. I'm Catholic. I was raised Catholic. Only Catholics would get that joke.
Well, I'm Christian, so I don't know. I mean, like, I hate Jehovah's Witnesses. I hate Mormons. All white Christianity. Like, he became a Mormon follower of Sun Myung Moon. Just like a North Korean, like, Mormon religious leader. Probably might have something to do with the extended amount of time he spent in North Korea.
Or it might have something to do with the fact that Mormons are interested in having multiple wives.
Oh, that's probably, that thing probably appealed to him very much. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Let's call a spade a spade. Like, the dude was like, wait, see, like, Joseph Smith sitting there, yo, Cleaver, you know that Angel Moroni? Dude, yeah, he told me we ain't gotta apply by that whole monogamy thing no more.
Oh.
Wait, Oh my God! Did Cleaver joining up with the Mormons and being interested in the multiple wives thing give rise to the Hoteps?
I wish, but I have no. I don't think he's the one who started the Hoteps. When I look into them,
Oh, okay.
I I'm pretty sure the Hotep movement or whatever the fuck that is a whole different ballgame. Lore, they are so insane. And
Well, I was gonna say they're into having multiple wives with white women, so
yeah, Hoteps are so weird. I can't wait to research them because they are so insane.
what a fucking night.
So like so yeah, that's a natural conclusion to his little story arc, which makes perfect sense. The dude is insane, so of course he took an insane end to his story. And
Well, it also oh sorry, it also explains why like gay people didn't want to be a part of this movement because like when your media guy and your poster child for your fucking movement is a homophobic, polygamous, border jumping fucking black Nazi rapist, like holy shit, what
you
a great
know,
movement. Where do I get tickets?
what a great guy! What a swell guy!
Yeah, really, holy shit.
North Korea, come on! And he ended up hating communism too. Fuck this guy,
Yeah, fucking black incel, yo.
bitch. Yeah, he didn't like communism. I'm pretty sure at first he was pretty fond of communism, and then like after he spent a lot of time in North Korea, he said, "No, I don't like communism anymore," and then he just became a GOP Republican.
It's a good thing the shit that goes on in North Korea isn't communism, it's democracy.
North Korea is so democratic, right, guys?
Oh yeah, it says so on their label.
Yeah, just like how the Nazis is like the you know the National Socialist Germans Working Party. You know, it's actually socialism, guys.
I,
They said so.
I'm a German and a socialist. So I'm not gonna rant on that comment. I'm gonna stay silent. Um, I guess the real question we're ultimately going to get twisting later on, and the last time you had a really funny answer for this, but for the intrepid white gay that's going to tell us, what does this black dude have to do with gay history? What would you tell them?
um, listen, my friend. The answer to your question is coming up because fundamentally that question is insanely retarded. Because how the fuck can you not see that all of these things are entwined? I will get into that a little bit, just a little bit, because I we'll see in a little bit, especially after after I talked about the statistics. You do realize black homophobia is a really big problem, right? You do realize I get hit the hardest by black homophobia, right? White queer man.
Wait, so you mean I didn't pick you up just exclusively to kind of like because I liked you, that I actually picked you for a reason? The fuck?
Crazy. It's almost like there is a there are intersecting issues and there are unique issues that face a very specific demographic of people. Very specific demographic of people, mind you, that actually matter and deserve to have their voices heard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is the answer to your question, fuckwad. So, moving on from Cleaver's insanity. Another interesting factor in this is I'm going to have to divert attention and look at the Moynihan report. Moynihan report. And Moynihan report is titled like The Negro Family Case for for National Action.
Oh, fun.
Yep. Essentially, it argued that the problem with the black family is that black men aren't taking charge enough and women aren't taking their place, leading to a matriarchal society. Does that
That's a
sound familiar?
Sounds
very
like Tucker
European way of
Carlson.
looking at it.
Yeah. Oh, and it was written by a white man. I forgot what his name. His
Oh,
last name was
what
Moynihan.
was his last name? Ben Shapiro.
Man, you see, the funny thing is, this conservatives are so hive-minded that almost feels like it was written.
Dude, isn't it just amazing how these like when people make the jokes about like how like history repeats itself? I'm gonna challenge that. Like from just what we've heard tonight, history doesn't repeat itself. It just keeps. It's like the Energizer Bunny just keeps going,
Just because people
going.
think that these things have oh no, it's dead and gone. You have your rights. No, 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 no. No. A lot of the same talking points that you hear now have been perpetuated for years. Like a prime example of this is you guys ever heard of the personal responsibility argument that you keep on hearing now?
Oh yeah,
That thing has been coined. Yeah, that thing has been going on for think about like a century now, right? I think that came about at around the dawn of capitalism, essentially, American capitalism. It's a classic term used to disenfranchise poor people. Say that they should just take responsibility for their own actions. Meanwhile, we're going to hit you with all kinds of financial distress and agony. We're going to overwork you, and we're also going to take more of your money. We're going to put you in awful conditions. But don't worry. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and you'll become just as rich as I am. Maybe. I mean, you have a 0.00001% chance of getting there, but at least you have a chance. Ha ha ha. Hey. Yeah, it's been like that for a century now. You know, that's a prime example of how these things keep on going.
Me.
Sorry, what?
It's an assimilationist confused me.
Assimilationist? Is that what that is?
Well, it wasn't written by a black guy, but like black conservatives who tout sort of same talking points, they confuse me.
They really do. And they do it
like
from
I feel like Candace Owens has taken like this argument or something like that.
The personal responsibility one? Yeah, she has.
Well, not just the personal responsibility, but the overall. Hey, the problem with black families is that the father isn't taking charge.
Yeah, the matriarchy thing. Even some pro-black conservatives do this. It's just so weird. And like essentially,
personally,
go on.
I would say like it makes no sense either because it's like, well, the black men should take responsibility for their families. How? You fucking lock them all up. Like you lock them up on bullshit charges. Like, oh, you got weed. Yeah, not a crime. Victimless crime. It's like, okay, and then when they get out, like, you know, they have no money to work with, so they have to resort to different like. It's once again this.
Yeah, and they can't get jobs even after they get out of prison.
Not only can they not get jobs because they're a convict, they can't start their own businesses, which means they can't get money into their own communities. A fundamental thing, like everyone points to the Asians in this regard, like, oh, the Asians are an example of like this working. It's like, yeah, because the Asian people built communities and were able to keep their money in their communities by a lot of various actions, and they were able to form communities. But like that also comes at the cost of a lot of generational trauma that like movies like Turning Red have recently kind of like put spotlights on. So like if your examples of getting ahead in your system are generations of unreasonable trauma in a system that is built to fuck you over, and then just like versus just do what we say and not what we do and be our perfect servants. Like you have supplication or you have perpetual suffering. Take your pick. And that's the thing I think that like white people, and I'm gonna say this, I didn't get this as a white guy for the longest time because like I grew up around fucking conservative people. I had a fucking bus driver who used to play Bill O'Reilly in fucking the the guy who used what's the other Glenn Beck on my morning rides to school. Like I grew up thinking like, oh yeah, black people are just in bad situations because they're lazy, and then you grow up and you actually get educated. And you're like, no, wait, there's a lot of complex systems here. There's a lot of fucking people that advocate for black people on social media that deep down they still think that pull yourself by your bootstrap shit works.
What? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, right. So, well, I got a big YouTube channel because of this. You got a big channel because there was people who put the time in and the work in long before you ever came along, and you're reaping the rewards of that now.
Pretty much. And you sold your soul, but don't worry about that.
Yeah, and that's why I said, like, with the gay community, like, the gay community has so much to thank people of color for, and thanks to the shit like the Matt. I mean, honestly, this is probably the first video where we didn't have the Madison Society to blame for some shit.
Yeah, surprisingly, right? Well,
and that's only because we had an even more.
Whiteness,
well, yeah, but like it wasn't them specifically, and that's mainly because we only had a slightly larger asshole to deal with.
There are assholes within every movement. It's just crazy. It's just really, and we see modern versions of people like this even now. Because to be honest, I see a lot of modern versions of Cleaver now, and it's just like, good lord, it's disgusting how Cleaver died, and funnily enough, he died a year before I was born. So Cleaver died, and his ideology didn't. Yeah, he did. I was born in '98, and if I remember right, he died in like '97.
I keep forgetting I'm old.
How old are you?
I'm 25. I'm gonna be 26 in a few days.
Huh. 24. Alright then.
Right?
So going back to like the whole like patriarchal black family thing, like their argument that the matriarchal society thing, women are taking charge, essentially makes the argument that patriarchy is the ideal structure for society, and that the nuclear family is what's truly valuable. And they called the destruction of this little holy structure the tangle of pathology. And this mindset plagued the Black Panther Party. Only they took it a step further and blamed white supremacy rather than, just the tangle of pathology. Now, does that sound familiar?
It does. That was actually my fault for a second, but it does. But I also kind of do this like we need to keep to the nuclear family, otherwise white supremacy will rip it apart. I mean, in a sense, he's kind of correct because like black people did used to have something approximating a nuclear family, and a white supremacist system did rip it away from them. It was called the slave traders who came to Africa and threw them in chains.
Well, they had a certain version of it, nuclear family, but it wasn't the type of nuclear family that we know of.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, like, so, with all of that being said, it's crazy, right? After all I just described, all this time I spent talking about this subject, when going to Cleaver, the Black Panthers, and all the misogyny and whatnot, I know some fucking moron, again, another moron with a dumb, retarded, hypothetical questions, just come along and be like, why are you talking about misogyny? I thought this was alphabet. I thought you were gonna talk about gay stuff, and I thought you came here to talk about homophobia in the black community. Why are you talking about misogyny? I don't get it. Listen, you fucking moron. See, the answer to your question is very, very simple. Misogyny, transphobia, and homophobia. All three of them go hand in hand. All of them. All three of these issues intersect naturally. It's like bread on butter. A nuclear family structure, there is no room for homosexuality. Just right off the gate. women can't be lesbians because they, quote, need a man. A man can't be gay because being attracted to males is a feminine thing or a sissy thing. And a man who does anything feminine, such as, have sex with men, wear dresses, be emotional or flamboyant, is considered low quality or less than. Because, femininity as a concept considered to be less than by default. Secondary. Which also goes into why being transgender is looked down upon. Because what to them is a transgender than a male who just wants to be feminine? You see how all three of these little issues just kind of intersect naturally?
Well, what's also interesting on top of that is, like, have you not watched our video on the Madison Society? Like, that was literally misogyny that curtailed the gay movement here. And here we are, like, white gayness being used to curtail the black movement for years. And here we have a person fighting for a movement of black people that intrinsically have a lot of issues with, gayness, even though, like, what was it, Lil Nas X is, like, super popular right now, and his whole thing is that he's gay and black. And a lot of white people I know talked about, like, oh, well, when Lil Nas X did his Montenegro video and it was about him going to the hell and stuff, people were like, oh, that's so tragic because, like, white people have told black people to go to hell for years. It's like, no. He's not saying white people are telling black people to go to hell. He's saying that older black people have been telling younger gay black men to go to hell for years. Like, not every concept of, like, I kind of run this up with the Boondocks. Like, the Boondocks is a black person's criticism of the black community built for black people. And there's a lot of white people that are like, oh, my voice, he says things I agree with. It's like, yeah, but it's not your criticism. It's not your word to have. Like, black people can criticize other black people, and white people don't need to be involved whatsoever.
Yep. Like, and Boondocks has been, like, so misread. Because I don't think it has once, like, ever downplayed, like, real life systemic racism. And on top of that, a lot of black conservatives that I know of look at Boondocks and call it based, even though they had an whole entire episode basically making fun of the homophobia within a black community.
Yep.
You can't tell me it's nothing other than making fun of homophobia in a black community.
Well, that's also why, like, the fundamental concept of misogyny, and in this case, misogynoir, that's the reason I wanted 2 trans women, or at least at least one trans woman and someone. Calon, you're a gender abolitionist, aren't you?
Snake died.
I think Calon is. Calon, you're a gender abolitionist, aren't you?
No.
Oh, you're not. Okay. Well, then
No.
Twisty.
I don't think gender can be abolished.
I don't think it can be abolished, but I think working towards it will inevitably produce better outcomes in the long run.
Well, I mean, my point still stands. I just got the two you mixed up. So, Twisting is a gender abolitionist, and Calon is a trans person. Like, that was fundamentally what I wanted. I wanted to try and get this project as far away from fucking misogyny as I possibly could. And I was kind of trying to be like, the only real source of misogyny should be me as, like, the white man. And that's only because, like, well, it's my project I came up with. Very evil concept. But yeah, no, this is because the misogyny is so intrinsic. The idea of sub and doms, or bottoms and top in gay culture, that's totally a product of misogyny in a lot of ways. So, yeah, they are intrinsically linked. And if you can't see that, then either one, watch more of our videos and kind of catch up, or number two, do some soul searching.
Do some soul searching. You
Yeah,
might find a
for
trans
too
woman
long
inside you one.
Well, like, we covered this with the Radical Fairies, we covered this with the Madison Society. Like, for too long, people of color and gay people have been held in different courts. And it's like, no, we all need each other.
We're all intersecting, and we should stop pretending that we're not, that we shouldn't be together on this, because we should. Oh man, leaving behind demographics is always leads to a downfall within a community. Always pulls that community backwards.
Mhm.
So, and I did talk about this before in our first recording. But Jean Genet, I've asked you this question. You said you know who he is.
Yeah, his name rang a bell. I could tell you a few facts about him off the top of my head, but not much more.
Yeah, he's a French playwright, novelist who was very controversial for producing works that had explicit depictions of homosexuality.
Mhm.
One of his most famous plays, man, this dude is so based, is called The Blacks. It was a play that essentially, a synopsis of it, kind of exposed racial prejudice and featured many black actors in whiteface. One of which was my boy James Earl Jones. Love him, and there's
Yep.
a lot of there are a lot of
Yep.
black actors that I know of that are like casted in it. It's so good. Based, I need to watch that one day. One day, however, he was invited to the U.S. by the Black Panther Party, and he stayed in the States for like 3 months. This happened in like the 70s, mind you, like mid 70s, like early to mid 70s, and this is around the time when the Black Panthers are starting to progress a little bit slightly, and women were being more involved, and they were becoming a lot less otherized. So around this time, and Janae would often like when he visited the U.S. and he was among the Black Panthers, Janae would often hear party members using homophobic language and slurs to insult people like Nixon and John Mitchell. And Janae himself expresses disgust for this language, and it started a sort of domino effect that would raise awareness to issues homosexuals face in those. Eventually, the details of this matter would reach Huey Newman, and Huey was in jail at the time, and even Janae, while he was there, he actually attended his trial during his time in the States. And let me talk about Huey Newman for a brief moment, because this guy was actually based. Because, like mentioned before, he was all about the community service and helping the community. You know, all the sissy garbage. And Huey Newman stated that of all the oppressed minorities, quote, the homosexual could be the most revolutionary. He called his fellow Panthers to participate in movements that will liberate women and homosexuals alike. And despite all of what I've described regarding Cleaver and everything that the Black Panther Party has just been, all the toxicity that was pervading the Black Panther Party in the beginning, the Black Panther Party had progressed since its early founding. And many sources saying that like by the mid 1970s, there were far more black women involved than there were black men. And I will say part of it is because of part of the reason why why black women were the majority is because of patriarchy. Violent patriarchy, you know this idea. The men had to be the ones to go out and fight. And since the Black Panther Party was not averse to violence by any stretch, the men would often engage in violence and they would often get arrested. And since all those men would be getting arrested, that left over a lot of black women. And they had to step up and lead the charge pretty much. So essentially, their patriarchy was its own downfall. Patriarchy basically killed itself, and black women ended up rising in the end. That's the good ending of this story.
All right, what a twist. We included women, and things instantly got more inclusive, and we were able to actually make some steps forward. And the patriarchal nature died on the vine like it properly deserved.
The matriarchy.
Right? Oh my god. What a roller coaster character.
Yeah, that is
So
the end.
is it the end of the tale for today? Twist.
Yep, that is the end of our wonderful tale.
All right. Calon, do you have anything to close out with?
Don't rape people. Even if it's to get back at white people, just don't do it.
You know what the sad part is? We still have to tell people that, so it is good we include that.
Yeah.
As far as for me, y'all, I just want to say that thank you for sticking with us. I know we're getting more content out for you all, and I appreciate you guys sitting on these videos. Like I said, YouTube is kind of skull bashing. YouTube is doing to our channel what Henry Carver or Eldritch Cleaver, excuse me, thought would be a really good idea to do to white women. So if you all can give us a like, a comment, or a subscribe, we'd appreciate it. Send this video out to other folks. And again, feel free to, if you disagree with anything we had to say here, to leave a post. I'm sure Twisting will get to you eventually. Also, on the Alphabet Mafia, we will be putting up some artists, like like spotlights on some community members. So if you know a community member who needs a spotlight, or anybody else who does artwork, please get in contact with us, and we'll be using your art and content in our show. I think that's all we have for tonight, and I guess we should say goodnight, guys. So good night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.
And we are cut. Okay.